Italy at the oops, hang on, I gotta tell the thing, okay. She created a mosaic called Genesis, which was invited to an exhibit in Venice, Italy at the Orsoni, I hope I said that right, gallery, as well as exhibiting all over the United States. In 2013, she started teaching mosaic classes. And the way I found Julie was hunting the YouTube for artists, and I don't even remember it. Well, she responded, and maybe I went to her page then, but I went to her YouTube page, and she has a ton of videos about what she's working on and everything. And the one that I first saw, which I was intrigued with, and I hope she talked a little bit about it today, when in response to COVID-19, she opened the Driveway Gallery and began a series of studio videos on YouTube. And she continues to teach classes and make a wide variety of mosaics, from sculptural and garden pieces to jewelry and fine artworks. She's very prolific in my mind. And I appreciate watching your videos, Julie. It's been fun to watch how you work. So thank you. Take it away. It's up to you.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And all right, so Sue has asked me to speak about stained glass and bead mosaics, which I do make stained glass and bead mosaics. I make all kinds of other mosaics. And so a few of those other things make it into my slideshow because I just couldn't tell my story without going into some of that other stuff. So here is my first slide. This is me in my studio. My studio has been in my garage for quite a while, but we're empty nesters now, and I have recently moved into the house. So for the first time, I have air conditioning and heat, and it's just amazing. But I'm not 100% in. I'm working inside, and I still have all my supplies out in the garage. So I'm working on getting inside. But she was saying that I started in 2009. And so I'd like to just talk about how that happened. First of all, even though I had my degree and I worked a little bit in my field, I stayed home with my kids, and I wasn't just sitting around whatever. I was also homeschooling them. So it just took my whole life. Every waking moment, I was thinking of my kids and schooling and what we were doing with that. In my spare time, though, I was reading art books. So I was reading every kind of art book, but I wasn't doing any art whatsoever. I was just reading about it because I liked it. I read craft books too. So during that time, all I did was crafts like scrapbooking. I did some sewing, and mostly for my kids, and a lot of kids art. So nothing really for me. And when my youngest daughter was about 6, that was in 2009. And I had been reading about mosaics for about 6 months. And this photo on the right is of Sonia King, and she has written a book called Mosaic Techniques and Traditions that I would check it out, read it, and then check it out again. I just couldn't get enough of it. It's like this Bible for mosaic artists. And it has the history, and then the tools of the trade, how to work, and then it has in the back a lot of photos of artists' work. And it was for the first time I saw that you couldn't just put, mosaics weren't for just practical reasons. It wasn't just for a table or for a pot. It was something that you could make into art, and the possibilities were just endless. And another thing that I also discovered during this time was there was, well, maybe about 6 months later, was a website where I would buy supplies called Mosaic Art Supply. And I just Googled Mosaic Art Supply, and there's a company called Mosaic Art Supply, so that worked out well. But in that shop, the owner is also a mosaic artist, and so he had a blog that talked about how to work, and he had tile calculators, and he had Also, what I really liked was this Mosaic Artist Gallery. And so it showed one piece of work and it had links to all of their websites. And so I went and if there was something I really liked, I would go and just stalk these artists and see how they made things. So it was, I mean, I was self-taught, but I was looking and being influenced by a lot of other people, because mosaic art is sort of a rare art. You know, there's not like painting or photography. It's hard to find people that do mosaics sometimes. Now I know where they all are, though. So during these 6 months where I was reading about mosaics, my kids, these were my oldest two boys, they were getting ready. They were in 4-H. We lived in Iowa, and they had to get ready for the fair. We had to come up with all these projects. But, you know, unlike a lot of their friends, we didn't live on a farm. We lived in town. We didn't have all these animals that we could show like a lot of their friends did. And so we had to come up with all these crazy projects. And so I said, well, how about we do some mosaics? And they said, sure. And so this is my oldest on the left with his table. He designed that frog. And that's the second oldest on the right with his mirror. And, you know, all we could find was pink stuff. So I said, well, you just make it for your sister then, and that's fine. So that's what he ended up doing. But we had no tools. I had no tools. We just smashed things with a hammer and they pieced it together. But this was the very beginning. And what I found out was that I was way more obsessed with mosaics than my two kids were. Mm-hmm. And it was all I could do to not make these projects for them. And so as soon as the fair was done, I said, I am going to, when this crazy fair is done, I am going to buy my own supplies and I'm going to make my own mosaic. And, you know, we had 4 kids. I wasn't working. Things were tight. So to take $200 out of our household budget to spend on glass and glue and all the things I needed was a big ask. And my husband was kind enough to say, sure, you need to do that, do that. So this was the first mosaic big mosaic. I made a sign, I think, before this, but this was the first big mosaic that I made. And I had a finished basement with big blank walls. And so I thought, well, I'll make it to go on the walls down there. And I used leftovers from that frog table. So the red and the green came from the frog table. And then I had to buy those tiles online because there was no place to buy them. We had no mosaic shop in town. And that continues to this day. I buy most of my things online. There's really not a mosaic shop in town here. But the tiles I got at Mosaic Art Supply. And when it came to this project, which was 2 foot by 4 foot, I decided I would purchase one tool. And from the book Mosaic Techniques and Traditions, I purchased what's called a side biter. And it's really great for cutting tile. But what it's not really great for cutting is glass. And these happen to be glass tiles. So I had a lot of ways that the tool crushed the glass. But, you know, I was learning and I didn't know any better at the time. So then after that, you know, someone in your family sees what you can do. And then all of a sudden you're making gifts for people. So I made this for my mother-in-law shortly after that other project. And this one, you know, I learned that you need a different adhesive if you're going to put mirror on because of the backing. You don't want it to de-silver. And also if you have big chunky things like that mirror has chunks of amethyst, you need something stronger than the adhesive that I was using. So I had to buy, this was sort of an exploration in different adhesive. I had to buy different adhesive for the chunks of amethyst and then also for the mirror and then a third adhesive for the rest of the tile. So that was a big deal at the time, and I was trying not to spend too much money on it. So let's see. Oops. So this was another early piece. Again, you know, this is a very slow art. So I was still homeschooling my kids at the time, and we were doing all kinds of activities. And so the only time I worked on this was late at night after they're in bed. was about it. And I had it set up in my unfinished basement. And I just would go down there and work. And my youngest daughter would come and visit me all the time. No one else really visited me that much, but she would come down and I would make her sit. Had a little stool where she could sit and watch, and she wore goggles, and we could talk, and it was wonderful. But on this one, I decided to try. I was just trying different materials and different techniques, and so I had found this beautiful beach glass, and I thought, oh, I'm going to use this beach glass. It reminds me of the sky, behind some blossoms, and I'll mix it in with glass and blah, blah, blah. And then also, so that was one thing. I used these chunks, and my conclusion on that was that if you have something that's beautiful and special, don't put it in the background. But, this was another learning piece. And the other thing I learned on this one was behind these flowers, the centers are glass gems that are clear. So I had to paint behind the flowers. So that was the first time I had to paint the base so that you could see a little bit of pink and white behind those centers. And then the third thing I learned on this one was back on that frog table, I had used white grout, and on the poppy piece, I used black. And on this one, I think I used white, and then I ended up painting it because it looked garish. I did not like it. And so I painted it. And that's something a lot of people, I'm always kind of surprised my students will just not be too adventurous and are a little bit more cautious than I am. I jumped right in. I didn't know it was even a thing. I just tried it. So then this piece is called Reveal My Soul. And I consider this piece to be my first real art piece where I was putting myself out there. And I had this idea, and it was a crazy idea where I would build the substrate, and I had sort of gleaned that information, I guess, from online and just stalking different artists of how to do that and make these layers stiff enough to support the materials that are going on there. And so when you make it and you put rigid wrap on there, which is sort of what they put on casts, and that makes it stiff, but it's still not strong enough. So then when you put the mosaic on, you use thin set, and that makes it much, much stronger. And so I had to build each of these petals separately on mesh, and then apply them with thin set onto the piece.
That's beautiful, Julie. We also got another comment from another one of our members, Maggie, and she said that your other piece was gorgeous as well. I wanted to ask you 2 questions, if I can interrupt you. What glue do you use for mirror? I knew there was a different glue, but I guess I'm not looking in the right place to find it.
Mirror just needs to have a neutral cure adhesive because of that backing. So thin set is terrible. You can't use thin set, but weld bond is neutral cure. It's not neutral when it's wet, but it cures neutral, so it's fine. And okay. Silicone is also. At the time, I didn't know that those were options, and I bought mirror mastic, which you can get at the hardware store. And I think I only ever used it for that one project, so it was kind of a waste.
And then this piece you said it was rigid wrap?
Yes, I used sculpting mesh to make the pieces, and then I wrapped them with rigid wrap so they were stiff. But even though they're stiff, they're not strong. And so when I applied the mosaic on there, I applied it with thin set, and that gives it strength and rigidity.
Yeah, I had never seen a piece like this before. We had one of our local galleries in town had a mosaic show early this year, and someone had done something not like this, but built up and made like an envelope, and then she mosaic things inside it. And I didn't get to talk to her, so I didn't understand how she created that 3D lift effect. So thank you.
Right.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Anyway, so the whole idea of this came from an artist that I was really obsessed with. His name is Giulio Mazzoni, and he's from Udine, Italy. He's considered a maestro, and he made layered pieces, but not like this. He didn't make them peel off. What he did was he would stack pieces of wood so that it was layered and the wood was all different shapes or whatever. So his pieces, he would call dynamic, and they were very dynamic because they had so much movement from the layers, and I was really interested in that, but I want to copy it. I wanted to see if I could take that idea and do my own take on it. And so this was something that I came up with. And this piece, Reveal My Soul, I entered in Mosaic Arts International, which is an exhibit put on by the Society of American Mosaic Artists every year. And I think I entered it in 2013, or it got in the 2014 exhibit, I think, 2013 or 2014, one of those. And another thing about this is I used everything but the kitchen sink here. I used minerals, I used shark teeth, I used shells, I used washers, Millefiori for the first, or no, I think I used Millefiori before, but Millefiori and glass, you know, ball chain, all kinds of different things. And I didn't have enough money to buy gold smalty and put gold smalty on there. So I just used gold glass. I use gold mirror, and none of this is really, it's not real gold. It's just gold colored glass.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. But the idea was that you peel away these layers of yourself, and underneath you, your soul, and hopefully your soul looks like a garden. Hopefully mine looks like a garden. Anyway, so then it made it into this conference. I think I might have the year wrong. That might be 2014. But this is a picture of me and Giulio Mazzoni. I got to meet him, and so that was thrilling. He was part of the jury. He was one of the jurors for Mosaic Arts International, and he was also part of an invitational exhibit. And then down here in this picture is Sonia King, the one who wrote the Mosaic Bible. I got to see her speak up close and personal, and so that was thrilling. And then over on the right is Margot Anton, and she gave a presentation, and it changed the course of my work. So she also became sort of key. Her presentation was called Mosaic a Day, and she had challenged herself to make a mosaic every day for I don't know how long. And so she was just going through all the different ones that she did, and how much she learned doing that. Of course, they were all very, very small because it takes so long to make mosaics, but that was sort of a nice challenge that she had made herself. She also had a booth that showed her mosaic pendants. And that is the part that I picked up on. And I was like, wow, these are great. And they look easy and fast, and I want to make them. So when I got back from the conference, which by the way, these conferences, this first conference was so eye-opening with the amount of work and the amount of people and the professionalism out there. I couldn't sleep the whole time I was there. My brain hurt. It was just, my brain was going so fast, and it was kind of stressful. I won't lie to you, because it was just so rich with mosaics.
But how exciting that you got to meet those people and the input, and you were excited about the input of all the art and artists. That's right. Very cool.
And the funny thing is, I was so excited to meet Giulio Mazzoni, and I asked if I could take his picture, and he said yes. He didn't speak English. I didn't really talk to him. We couldn't understand each other, but he knew I wanted to take a picture. So anyway.
That's okay. That's cool.
So here I got home and I started making pendants. And these right here, can you see my cursor?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So the ones that are right here, this is sort of where I started. I know that lady Margot Anton was she was using exclusively this high-end material called smalty, which is a thick cut glass that is made in Italy. And so at first I kind of started there, but very quickly realized I wanted to put everything in there. And that's when I started using beads. I started putting beads in there. And this one is smalty, but I use stained glass, I use minerals, I used mirror, all kinds of things, charms, you name it.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And the great thing about these was, well, when I started with these, I didn't really know much about the adhesive, so I was using E6000, And that's just a very toxic adhesive. You don't want to use it long term. And so I had to quit making them for a while because that just was, I didn't like that. E6000 has warnings on it that it causes cancer. So I had to find something else. And I'm not sure where I heard about epoxy sculpt, but the rest of these are made with epoxy sculpt, which is a two-part adhesive. You mix it, you have to wear a glove and you have to mix it with your hand, and it's sort of like polymer clay is the consistency of it, but it's sticky. And so this one with the winter tree, the background is all black epoxy sculpt. And then
I
these,
love that.
the floral ones here are, I think I tinted the epoxy with some blue to get some sky colors in there. But using black is great because it recedes behind, and I don't grout my pendants at all. And that's just a wonderful thing to do, to make a pendant. When I started, it took me about, I don't know, I was pushing an hour and 15 minutes, something, an hour and a half. And I've made so many, I probably made over 500 that I can, if I know what I'm doing, I can knock it out fairly quickly, at least in under an hour. So it's very satisfying to be able to have something that you could do that's quick and whatever. So I had a little bit of smalty that I was using on these pendants. And then this was my first piece that was made with all smalty. And it's smalty is, well, stained glass runs about $8 to $12 a square foot on average, I guess. But smalty is more like $20 a pound, and it takes 3 pounds to cover a square foot. So it's $60 at least. And I think I priced it recently. It's even more than that, 75. And the reds can be even more. They can be up to $100 a square foot. So it's, you know, you want to be careful using it. It can be intimidating. You don't want to waste it.
No, I haven't worked with it yet, but I love the look of it.
Yeah, the colors are very rich, and it's different than stained glass because you typically put the cut edge of the glass up, and that captures the light more. So like when you look at a cathedral, they typically use smalty, and they facet, the faceted side is what you see because it captures the light. Anyway, that was a challenge I made. And this was my son when he was about 13. So that's a keeper. I thought people wanted to buy that, but it's not for sale. And then I made this one, and it was, this is the first one where I used beads in a larger work. I had some beads in her hair, in her face, her dress, I think, up in here, and her leg. And then maybe a few over here. These are mostly glass baubles, not beads, but this piece is called Loose Thread. And I went fairly large with it. This is a photo from a photo that my brother-in-law took on his phone. And it wasn't the best camera at that time. The phone cameras weren't that great. So it was a fuzzy photo. And I find I kind of like that because that gave me a little bit of wiggle room to interpret how I wanted to interpret it. But she had just finished making a skirt here, and she asked him to take a picture, and then she leaned down to pull that thread off, and he took a picture, and I was captivated by it when she showed me, and I said, wow, can I use that photo? And they said, sure. So they gave me permission. And this one was one where it was mostly brown tones with a little bit of pink in her dress and, you know, pink in her skin. So the wall behind her was one of the most challenging things because I didn't have any more brown. And I was like, well, maybe I can make brown by mixing it. And this is a mosaic, so you should be able to mix it. I don't know if it's really brown, but I was going for something neutral, and I had to mix it because I didn't have the color. So it was really tough. And thank you. I have a little, my favorite part of this one is that I think when I made this, I didn't quite understand color theory and tonal values, but I admired that in painters. And I admired when I would see a landscape and the shadows would be blue. I loved that, but I didn't know how to do it. And I tried to do it here, and I think it worked pretty well. The blues that I popped in there, I wanted to get those blues in there. And then the secret is that I did the body of my sister first, and then I worked on the background. And you can see on the curtain here, the light coming through the window, and these mullions. There's 3 mullions.
Yeah.
But down here on her leg, it's a double of that. Because when I got up here, I was like, I'm not putting double mullions in, forget it. And so I said, should I go back and change the leg? And I just made the artistic choice. No, I'm not going to. Nobody ever notices it. I just thought I'd point that out.
No,
Oh, I
right.
noticed. It's great. It's amazing.
Anyway, this one I've entered in a lot of shows. It won some prizes and stuff, but a lot of people, if they see me, they'll always say, oh, I just love that ballerina one you did. And I'm like, I never did a ballerina. This is it. So just the pose is very elegant, I think, and reminds people of a ballerina.
Julie, I think this is very creative, and I think doing the wall the way you did it is better than being just brown.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. When you have a limited palette, I'm always like, limited palette. I only can use what glass I have. I can't mix it like you can with paint. And
So that was very creative. I like it.
Thank you. So then the company that makes Smalti, the Smalti that I was using is one of them is called Orsoni. They're in Venice, Italy. And I found out that they had a competition. And if you could make a piece of art using, I think you had to have at least 75% or the majority had to be using their product, which was Orsoni Smalti, then you could enter it in their competition. And the prize was a week-long trip to Italy and go to one of their workshops. And I was like,
wow.
what? Sign me up. I'm doing it. And so, I bought all this Smalti, and then I made this. This was originally called the Crab Nebula, and it's based on the Hubble telescope image of the Crab Nebula. And there were all the different gases would swirl, and they were different colors. And I was trying to get the movement and all that. But later on, and this was another one where I made the hand form base the same way, where I used the mesh and then the what's that stuff called? I already forgot. The rigid
ridge wrap.
Rigid wrap, yeah, to make it stiff. And then I used thin set to apply the Smalti on there. And this was another weird one where I was like, no one is even gonna know what I'm doing. And okay, whatever. But the Smalti, I also used a lot of gold Smalti, 24 karat gold Smalti. So 24 karat gold Smalti is what I'm pointing to here on the edge. But it's also this, and it's also this, and it's also this green you see. So that they take a piece of glass and they put gold leaf on it, and then they put a very thin layer of colored glass on top, so it can be whatever color. So it comes in blue and green and orange and all the colors. So I used that, but I also on this one used minerals. There's some rocks in here. I think I used some clear glass because I tinted the thin set blue. So you could see the blue thin set behind the white, but there's also some clear glass in there. I used beads in here too, I think. Oh, I know where. On the background, I wanted to make this background all black, an all black Smalti with the stars or whatever, but I just didn't have the budget for it. It was way too expensive to cover that whole thing. And so I used swaths. You can see like I have a swath of Smalti, but then I have right next to it a swath of tinted black thin set that I embedded beads in. And so it's seed beads and bugle beads to give that sparkly color. And then some areas I just left blank. And I put thin set on them and then painted them black because I just didn't have enough money. But so this did not win. I did not get to go. It was quite disappointing. But they contacted me, or Sony contacted me, and they said, well, you know what? We have this biennial where we have an exhibit in our gallery, and we'd like to show your work, and we'll pay for shipping. I was like, oh, you'll pay? Count me in. And so it did go to Venice, and it was on display for a year during their biennial. And that was a great honor.
Yeah, how exciting. I think with what you've done with the beads, I love the beads inset and thin set. I haven't tried it yet, but I love it. The textures you get, you can't get that without mixing all that. It's really cool looking.
Right. There's one other thing. Oh, I know. When it got back from Venice, there was an exhibit in Texas, and there's not a lot of mosaic exhibits. I was kind of surprised to hear that you guys had one that was just mosaic. That's pretty good. But there was this one that was in Texas, and it was the Museum of Biblical Art, and it had to be something from the Old Testament. And so I was like, well, I already have this. So I renamed it Genesis, and I put it in that exhibit, and it was in there. It was in there next to Julie Mazzoni had a piece in there. Our pieces were next to each other on the wall. It was, I never went to that exhibit, but that was kind of a big thing too. That was cool. They had a couple of them. I entered them a couple times. Let's see. Back to the gifting. My in-laws had their 50th anniversary, and I asked my mother-in-law what she said. Oh, I'd like a mosaic. What kind? I want a leopard. I thought, oh, that sounds like work. But so I made this leopard, and I mixed in this mostly stained glass with gold smalty mixed in. So there's a lot of gold. You can't see it, but it's in the spots on the leopard. I made the eyes golden, and then in the background, you can see a lot of it over here on this side. So on this one, I'd like to point out that this is something that's a common thing that is done in mosaics to emphasize the main subject matter. And that is, you put a line of tile or glass around the figure, and it's the color of the background, but it just gives a slight emphasis to it. And that's something that was done back in Roman times, and people are still doing it today because it's a technique that works. But that was the trickiest part, was here where it transitioned from dark to light, to get it so that you could see the leopard, so he didn't disappear into the background. It was tricky business. Anyway, that's called opus vermiculatum when you do that. There's formal names for that sort of thing. And on this one, again, I used multiple grout colors, white and cream, and I think black on this one.
He's beautiful.
Thank you. So that was, so she likes that. They still have that. So then I went back to experimenting. I never stopped experimenting. I wanted to try some different things. I wanted to try out thin set as an element to see what you could do with it. So I made these 3 pieces, and they all use some of the same things. They all use thin set in some way that I had never used it before. They use, I tried ceramic for the first time, I believe, or one of the first times. And then I wanted to try gold leaf on Mylar and see if there was a way you could use it. So I used it on the petals here, on the background here for the that accordion fold, and then crumpled here in the middle. And the lesson that I learned was thin set is not easy to sculpt, and it's terrible to paint. So I won't be doing that again. This was too flimsy. I didn't like the petals here, but I do like the texture that made. And that's just crumpled up Mylar with gold leaf on it. But then the background also, like here, I put tempered glass over gray thin set. But on this one, I painted the base. I put the tempered glass over the paint, and then I grouted it. And you can see the color coming through. And that's something that's, I think, worthwhile. And then in this one, I just mixed the tempered glass in it. I thought it had a nice sparkle to it, but I didn't really like that in the end. So these 3 pieces were, I mean, you got to experiment, and just, there's so much to learn with mosaics. I didn't know, how these things would act. And it was good to be able to make these smaller pieces and try some of those things out. I still have these. They haven't sold, although I keep putting them out there. I wouldn't mind getting rid of them. All right, here's another one. Let's see, this one's called The Lesson. And I think by the time I got to this was a friend of mine. These are her 2 boys, but she posted this on Facebook. Again, it was a crummy picture she had taken with her phone. It was fuzzy, and but something about it, it drew me in. And I thought, if I just look at this photo when I'm scrolling through and it draws me in, that's good. That's a good composition. Something about it is good. And so I asked her if I could have permission to use it in a mosaic, and I didn't hear back from her. It was, radio silence. I was like, what's going on? So then probably a good 9 months later, I saw her in person at a luncheon with a bunch of friends, and I said, what's up with that? I asked if I still want to use that picture. Can I use it? Do I have your permission? And she was kind of like looking away from me, and I don't know. She thought I wanted to sell her the mosaic. She didn't know what I was talking about because she's not in the art world. She didn't know what a photo reference was or anything. So when I explained, no, you don't have to buy anything. I just can't use your photo without asking permission because you took it. And she was like, what? Yeah, you can use it. And so that was wonderful. These two boys remind me of my boys. And I know that her sons were into music, and I really don't know what they were doing here, but it seemed like they were doing a music lesson. And this one, I also used beads in the curtains and a little bit over here in the light coming through the window. But the big thing on this one was that I used what's called a grout river. And then using the colors of the composition, I had to go with blue. It makes such a nice contrast against that. They had wood paneling in there. And there's no mistake that those swirls are music. So it becomes a musical piece just from the grout rivers on there. But I realized when I got to, what?
Did she see the piece finished?
Yeah, she's seen it. She's seen it. And it's been in a lot of local exhibits. It's been around town. And I thought, I still have it. But I thought, maybe I'll just I might let her have it in her home and just say, you can borrow it. And then I don't know. I don't care. If somebody comes forward and wants to buy it, which that's kind of rare, but unless it's out there. But thank you. I like it too. And what I realized was that suddenly I had a couple of figural pieces, and they were all similar in that the subject matter is not looking forward at the artist. It was looking inward, sort of introspectively. They're doing their own thing here. My son at the creek, he was doing his own thing, looking down at the water, and my sister was looking at that thread. So then I thought, I must be really, I like that. I like that a lot. And if I find something else that's similar, I'm going to continue with that. But I've just been falling into these figural things. I haven't hired any models or anything like that. And so the figural pieces, although they're big, they're few and far between, because I just don't come across anything that often that I really, really like, I think. Oh yeah, this one. So this is another one for the Museum of Biblical Art, and I made it specifically for that exhibit. And it's 24 by 36, but I layered it a little bit. So there's a little bit of depth to it. Some of these flamey parts, I don't remember which ones, but they are a little bit thicker. The base is a little bit thicker, so that it has a little bit of dimension to it. And I used mostly Smalty, but again, Smalty is so expensive. I threw some other things in there just so it wouldn't be outrageous, but I did use some real gold in there, and I used beads. And one of the things I learned on this one is like this area in particular, I was using thin set and these little teeny weeny seed beads. And it was a bit of a disaster. I think that what I learned was the scale of the beads needs to go up with the size of your piece. You can't use these little tiny seed beads. They worked well with the background when I just was laying them in to fill an area. But when I was going for a specific flamey area here, it was just, the beads were everywhere. It was a mess. It was a disaster. And I'm not going to repeat this small size in such a large work again. Something like this worked much better and was easier to manage, and it's better, fits in the piece better because you can see it. So even though this piece went in the museum and it's sold there, so that was great, mainly because the shipping was so expensive, and I got a refund on half the shipping, and I got paid because it was sold. So that was really wonderful. Let's see. Let me go to the next one. Oh, so then there are the smalls. Yeah, I didn't just do pendants. Everywhere, I was teaching And I was teaching at a community center starting in 2013. And I was also doing a local art walk and would set up a table every Friday, you know, when the night weather was nice, and I would put all these small things out. I was trying to hit a lower price point because those other pieces, the bigger pieces, are in the thousands, and that's just not in everybody's budget. So like a little bird like this would be $40. And I think the rock, I don't know what it was, 40 or 50. Something like this was about 50. But then, you know, I've been experimenting, and where I like the searching for these different bases and putting together smalls. There's so much variety, and you can learn so much, and you can experiment, and I enjoy them immensely because they're so quick and easy. So I don't know if I'll ever give up smalls. This one was one where I actually sculpted that. I can't remember how I made it, but sculpted that nest, and I don't remember where those eggs came from either, but this was like a paper mache bird. So I had to stiffen that up with some, I can't remember what, and before I could mosaic on it because it was too flimsy. But this was this egg that I did was, what do you call it? You put a little plant in there. So it was a little terrarium base made out of glass. And I very painstakingly used real gold leaf on the inside of that egg. And that was just the worst thing I could have done. It was so difficult to get in there because with gold leaf it really, I mean, it flies away from you and it gets out of control very easily because it's so lightweight. So to try to get the adhesive in there and then get the gold leaf in there was next to impossible. It was tricky business. But I did some, so that was on glass. This was also glass on glass. And then like this egg was, I think, from Target. This sunflower was from a craft store. I don't remember where the pear came from. The bird was a seasonal item at Michael's, and I wish they'd bring that back because everybody always asks about that. And then rocks. I actually went to a landscape place and picked out some rocks, and then I was all ready for them to weigh them, pay for them, and they were like, "You can just take those rocks," because I only had a dozen or so. I'm like, okay.
Julie, what size on the, for example, and you don't have to be exact, but I see you're using the ball chain. I haven't used that yet. What size do you think is a good size so that they don't disappear in the grout?
I actually don't know what size it is, but I bought it at Home Depot in their ceiling fan department. They have they have ball chain there, and it's stainless steel. So that's where I bought it originally. Okay. Now I go to ballchain.com. I can't remember what the one is that everybody uses, 13 maybe.
Okay, I can look it up. I just thought I'd ask you too, because I want to try it, but I haven't.
Ball chain is so much easier than beads. I highly recommend it. Beads can fall all over, but the ball chain is always contained. It's not falling all over on the floor, I mean. So that's, anyway, they're good for experimenting. They're satisfying turnaround time. And I want you to look at this sunflower and keep this in your mind because this was my first sunflower, and we're going to get back with that later. Then I did this piece, Natalia. And wouldn't you know, it's someone whose back was to me. I actually went down to the pool with my youngest two, who are now teenagers. And I think it may have been the last time I took them down to the pool. We all went down together. They certainly didn't need me. But this lady was there with her kids, my neighbor. And I was looking at her and I thought, well, I love the way that she's sitting there. And so I took some pictures that were crappy with my own phone. And all these terrible phone photos are good for photo references, but I had to go up to her and tell her that I was an artist and show her the photos and say, would you mind if I use these in a piece of art? I'm an artist, blah, blah, blah. I don't think she really understood what I was talking about, but she did give me her email and I was like, okay, I'll send it to you when I'm done. And then I go, it'll probably be about a year. Because when I took this picture, I was in the middle of doing some other things and I thought, I'm not going to get to that for 6 months. And sure enough, it took me about 6 months before I got to it. But this one in particular, the composition, I did tighten it up. I remember there were 2 chairs So I cleaned it up. I got rid of one and I tightened it up and made it closer to her. And then she had a pile of junk next to her, like I don't know, a cup and her phone and whatever, lotion. I got rid of that. Her kids were in the water and I got rid of them. And I was very nostalgic when I was there, because I was like, that used to be me, where you couldn't take your eyes off your kids. And I did that for so long. And it was, I would sit there and watch my kids and dream about the day when I didn't have to watch my kids, because it would be a little bit monotonous. And what I love about this is that the stripes become a motif here. The stripes in the fence, the stripes in the chair, the stripes on her, even the stripes in the cement, the water, the cement again. They sort of hold that meaning of how repetitious things can be when you're in that phase of your life. But anyway, so I kind of I feel close to this. This one won a competition and a purchase award, so I don't have it anymore. I really like this one. I think it's one of my strongest ones of the figural pieces.
It's nice. I like it too. It's beautiful.
I worked, I had this movement that went around like this. And then I had the highlight in the bushes that kind of carried your eye, and it went back down. And then I was like, how do I get back over? I put a highlight using a little bit lighter glass coming across this way, just so that your eye would circle around. And
Yeah, it works.
Oh, here's some details of it. I like the perfect toes. It's tough to get skin colored glass. Oh, it's so tough. A lot of glass is streaky, and I was like, oh, look at the big difference between the highlight and this. That's not even, but it's more about tonal values and getting some of the right color in there, and then it works. Also, the tonal value and the shadow on this, I used purples and blues. There was no gray in that. Up here, you can see it's purple, more blue on the left side. All right, then I made this piece, Nymphaea, 2017. I wanted to do another large piece, and I had acquired all this green glass, and I was always taking photos of flowers, so I wanted to do this one. And this one I learned to trust the process, and particularly in mosaics, it's very important to step back from your work and take a look at it. I remember working on this part down here, and I had been doing, these lily pads, all very similar. Some of them had water drops, but they were basically, maybe a shadow on one side. This one didn't have that. I got down here and I was like, what in the world am I doing? I couldn't understand what I was doing, but I just followed my photo reference and kept working. And it wasn't until I stood back that I realized all this craziness was the shadow of the flower. But when I was working on top of it, I couldn't even see that. So it's good that I was trusting the process, but what I should have done was step back a little sooner so that I could see that that was the shadow.
Do you ever take photos while you're doing it? Because I volunteer teach a basic mosaic group, and a lot of times I tell them, well, every time I tell them, take pictures when you're stumped like that.
Yeah, and that's a good way. That's like stepping back when you take a picture of it, because it's so small. And I take pictures. Well, I make the videos too, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
All right. So the next big thing was that times were tight in our family. I had to get a job. So I went to work at this glass company near my home. And what a great experience. I worked there for 18 months. I won't kid you. Working retail is pure drudgery. The only thing that kept me going was I loved the glass. And I loved the artists that came in there. And everybody that came in always wanted to show me what they were working on. And everybody was very friendly. And here I am with, this is a fellow mosaic artist, Pam Good. And I hadn't known her. I think I'd met her once or twice. And so when she came in to buy glass, that was exciting. But just the range of glass that they had. And I learned so much about glass working there, because you can't help it. I learned how to fuse. So I did my first fusing. They had kilns there. They taught stained glass classes on weekends. And so I got a free stained glass class and made a little thing. And, you know, stained glass is not for me. That's what I learned, but I learned how to do it. And, you know, it might come in handy sometime. I don't know. I have used fused things before in my work. So this was the beginning of that because I didn't have access to a kiln before. I still don't own a kiln, but I know people that have kilns. I don't think I ever need to buy one. You know, I only use fused glass once in a while, and I can just borrow a kiln, I think, if I need to use it. So that was 18 months between January 2018 and I believe June or July of 2019. Unfortunately, Armstrong Glass, it was purchased by a new owner, and then they downsized, and then they moved to Arizona. So now we haven't had a local glass shop, but one of my coworkers from Armstrong opened a new glass shop here in Atlanta, and she's only been open a year or so. So she's slowly building up her inventory because glass is so expensive. She teaches stained glass classes, and she has all the supplies and things. It's not very close to my home though, but at least we have that, because we didn't have anything for a little while.
The education you learned
Yeah,
that time, priceless.
yeah, it was priceless. And here, this was my first community mosaic project, where I was teaching at the community center, and I was talking to the art director, and I said, you know, this drinking fountain looks so bad. We can surely put a mosaic around and it'll look better. Can I do that? Can we do a community project? She knew I wanted to do one. So she said, yeah, you can do it, but there's no money. I thought that's okay, because I was working in that glass shop. I had all this relatively inexpensive glass, and so I'll donate the glass. It's fine. And then we started this in, it took us a year, May of 2017, finished it. They kind of started to get on me. They were like, get in here and finish this and get it off the shelf and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. Before I was just working on it here and there when I had time, like on a whatever. And it was a very good learning experience, in that I will never do it this way again. I would make an announcement on social media that I was doing it. So come between 6 and 8 on Saturday, we're doing it. We're making this thing. And I never knew if one person would show up or 20 people would show up. And here on this photo, there were so many people. We didn't have enough goggles. I didn't have enough tools. You know, I could hardly manage when you do a community mosaic like this, there's a little bit of damage control. You kind of have to make sure people are on point and not just doing their own thing. And I could barely manage that many people. So it was a real eye-opener and learning experience about how organized these things need to be. But there's my daughter. Here's my son over here. My husband came. This is the only one my husband ever came and worked on. He's never done another mosaic. It's not his thing, but and my other son worked on it. So it's nice. My family came and worked on it a little bit. Anyway, never again. Here was the finished mosaic. We had, I think, split it into 4 or 5 pieces to work on it.
Wow,
And then
beautiful.
I installed it on the wall myself. That took a day or so.
Very cool.
But anyway, another thing I learned about this was it was way too detailed. Anything with detail like the birds, I did the birds. I did the butterfly. I did the rabbit. I did the head of the peacock, I think. And I don't like that. I want people to have more ownership of it than that and be able to work on all parts of it. So anyway. Then I started teaching at another facility. So suddenly I went from 1 class once a week, which meant for 3 hours, to 4 classes that met for 3 hours each. And then they were so popular that there were 5 classes. So I was teaching 5 classes a week. They met for 3 hours each. And suddenly I had students that were advanced, intermediate and advanced. Whereas before with once a week, it was beginners. It was always beginners. And so they wanted to do more challenging things. So they wanted to learn how to make the undulating substrate. So we did that. They wanted to learn eggshell mosaics. So we did that. They wanted to learn polymer clay mosaics. So we did that. This was a glass on glass. We did that. This one was, I think, layering and ceramics. So we did that. We did beads. We've done all kinds of topics. I have a survey at the end of my class and I go, what are you guys interested in? And they just range from all kinds of things. So I usually see where most people are interested. That also sort of lines up with what my interests are, because I have to do the research and I try to have a sample project that's done by the time class starts. So it's a little bit tricky, but these are some of the things. And having that many students pushed me out of my comfort zone to learn all kinds of things that I didn't know anything about. And so that was another great push. So working in the glass shop was one thing, and then these students, and then I'm still teaching them today, and they're still pushing me today. Another great thing about the students that are advanced is because they're taking the classes over and over, they become, you're friends with them. You can't help, you have a relationship with these people. Whereas before, when people were coming and going as beginners, that relationship is not there. So it's been wonderful, I think. Hope I still always have that.
Julie, before you leave that slide, can you go back? That center picture with the trees, is that glass?
That's eggshell.
That's what I thought. Because I've watched your videos.
I've only done like 2 eggshell. This one, yeah, that was one of them.
Wow.
So this is the piece on the left. I've been doing it. So then if I didn't have any commissions and I was teaching classes, and I like to have a personal project. And this was one on the left that I had an idea and I wanted to follow through with, but I used these frit balls, but I also used some glass that I had put little bits of the same color. So the frit balls were one aspect, but then I had the pieces of fused glass that tied it into the regular stained glass. And I made this swirling thing, and it was just, there was so much going on in my life in the spring. End of the year activities for kids are just insane. All of the ceremonies and banquets and graduations and just all of it. And you combine that with all the color of spring and the pollen that's in the air. And I'm like, that's it. That's kind of what I was going for there, the craziness of spring. But then over here on the right, I did another, a landscape. I hadn't done a lot of landscapes, but I put beads in this one. So I wanted to show that. This one is one of my husband's favorite ones, called Roses at Gibbs, which is a beautiful botanical garden near my house. And I go there and it's like a personal retreat. I love going there. Mr. Gibbs, who owns the garden, believes in mass plantings. So he does when he does roses, it's like roses as far as the eye can see. It's just amazing. All right. So then in 2019, I just got let go from the glass shop, and I was like, oh, this is awful. And then I got this commission for this big heart backsplash. And these clients kept telling me how much they loved color. So I think it's important when you're doing a commission to make sure you give them what they want. And they told me they had a niche in their kitchen. They were redoing their kitchen, and they had a niche set aside for this mosaic, and they wanted color, and they wanted an elongated heart. So you would not believe how many elongated heart swirly patterns I tried to show them, and they were like, nope, not that, nope, not that, not that, not that. Well, it turns out they didn't really want an elongated heart. They wanted a regular heart, and it just took us forever to get there because they said elongated. But in the end, they wanted me to use some doodles that their daughter had done. And so she had done this fish shape and a zigzag, and I think some swirls, kind of like this. Whoo! And so and they liked triangles. I'm not big on triangles. I think they're tough in compositions. But the zigzag and the triangle, at least they tied those two together. But they were willing to pay for Smalty, which is the best way to work with Smalty when someone else is paying the bill. And they wanted gold Smalty in there. And so I said, how I handled that was I said, you can just name a number and I'll buy that much amount in Smalty. And I think they were like, sure, $200. So I just spent $200 on Smalty, and that's what's in there. They had some antique gold accents in their kitchen, so they wanted a little bit of metal, antique gold. So this ball chain is huge. Again, I don't know what size it is, but I used ball chain, and then I found some little, I think some charms that were antique brass, and I put them in there. But the funny thing is, they had a painting. They had all these paintings that had all these bright colors when I was at their house. And they were like, this is what we like. We like this one and this one and this one. And one was this painting of a horse, and it had it was an abstract, and it had like a woman's face and a bird and some other things sort of overlapped. And they were like, this is what we love. And I said, oh, I'll try to work something in. And I couldn't make it work. I couldn't figure out how to do it. At first I thought maybe I'll do a grout river and make the shape of it. And it wasn't working. So I finally just told him, it's not working. There's not going to be hidden. And this was the husband and I. The wife was a high power business owner. So she was not part of that conversation. So we were going to surprise her with these hidden things. And I just couldn't make it work. And so I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't make it work. And then I went on vacation, and I went to a bead shop, and they had this amazing alien bead right here. And I thought, maybe I can work that in there. And so I bought it. And then that's what happened with this. I worked in the word love. Here's another bead. It's a parrot. There were a lot of hearts. I don't know if I can find any in here. So many heart beads and gems, and so many hidden items that in the end, I made a list of them. And I said, these are the hidden things in your mosaic. And it was just the beads and things like that. But there were ducks in here. Here's the duck, I think. And a peace sign. They were Jewish, so that I put a star. I found a Star of David and put that in there. And it was mostly beads, but they were bigger beads, ceramic beads. Here's a ceramic heart in there. There's a lot of hearts. But anyway, so I loved doing this once we worked out all the details. Working with all this color was not what I had been doing, and it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it.
It's beautiful. I love the colors. I don't know if I could have it in my house all the time, but I love permanently in a kitchen. I'm supposing was it mounted on the wall?
Oh, here it is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I have to say that this wall, I don't know who would put this in their kitchen. It's mother of pearl, and there's absolutely no way to clean that. I don't know how they keep it clean. It's spaghetti with. They
don't cook.
I don't know what they do, but that's what they like, and that's what they want. My son helped me install that, so that was fun.
Beautiful. Looks great.
Thanks. And at the same time I was working on that one, I got another big commission. This one was even bigger. It was for a Lutheran church. They were celebrating their 30th, and they wanted to buy themselves a gift, and this is what they picked. They picked a mosaic. And so I had to meet with the pastor, and then the pastor was very good, because he said, I'm gonna let you in on our committee, but in the end, I'm choosing. I have final say. And I was like, good, because somebody has to have final say, and things can get stuck in committees forever and ever. So every aspect of the design, I would send it to him, and then I would be in this big chain of people just saying, I like this, I like that, I don't like this, I don't. And in the end, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. And so then I would separately send a message to him saying, what was the consensus? Like, in the end, it was so many people, and I couldn't keep track of them. So I was like, what did you want again? Anyway, so they wanted the hands of God, giving the 3 gifts that their church has, which is baptism, the Bible, and Eucharist. And he wanted to make sure everyone felt welcome. And so we put that in words at the bottom. And I let him pick the font and all that business. And I brought in samples for him to look at, and small t being what the price it is. I said, you know, the price would be a lot more if it's small t. It'll be a lot less if it's stained glass, but here's samples of both. And he said, how about a combination? So the main, and he did the same thing where I said, if you want gold, we'll set aside a separate budget for that and we'll use gold. And he said, yes, we want gold. And so the main elements are made with small t and gold, and the background is made with stained glass. But he wanted another thing. He wanted his community to work on it at the anniversary of their church, which they were having a festival. And so I set up a community aspect of it, and for 2 days on a weekend, they could come in. And this time, this was my second community project, so I had a better handle on how I wanted it to run. And one of the things I asked for is I said, I need a team of people to help me, and I'm going to train the team. And then I need 2 team members in the room with me at all times. One is going to check people in and give them the safety, you know, have them sign the waiver, give them the safety glasses. And then the next person is going to show them how to score the glass. And then they're going to come to me and I'm going to show them how to place it, because I can't be in 3 places at once. And it was so fast. These people were in and out. They came in the room. They were only in the room for 30 minutes. So they signed up. Oh, and they signed up ahead of time. So it kept moving. And again, it was another learning experience because I didn't schedule in a break for myself, and I could not even leave to go to the bathroom. And I was starving at the end of the day. I was like, okay, never again will I not schedule a break for myself, because I needed a little break. And also, like, the quality control aspect of it, when you have people coming in and then the next group is coming in right behind, there's no time to fix the problems were, and I, you know, and they were taking ownership. They were making a thing and taking a picture of it and going, this was my part. And really, that's what's so good about community projects. But so then when I go to fix it, I can only fix it so much. But it's complicated, that background. We were doing an ombre thing where it went from light to dark, and it was striped, and there was all kinds of stuff going on there. So it was complicated, but they really enjoyed it. The other part was I didn't charge a separate fee for that, and I will do that in the future, because that was a lot of work. So here we are back to a sunflower. And the reason, you know, that small that I showed you with the sunflower, it had beads in the middle. But I really, I finished those 2 big projects. The one for the church was due, they wanted it for the Christmas Eve service. And they came and picked it up on December 23rd. So it was just under. I mean, I had it grouted and everything, but I think I finished it a week early. So I had a little time to work on, you know, when I'm working, that was probably from 6 months of projects where I couldn't work on anything I wanted to work on. I was doing the commissions. And so this was brewing, and I wanted to really emphasize those beads and have fun with those beads. And so this one, I put a piece of foam under there and built the beads up, and I love this. And also I love the combination of blue and yellow. Who doesn't?
Did you build that seed head up with styrofoam?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. Then let's see. Oh, then my daughter, my youngest, was graduating in 2020. And so I started on this piece, The Empty Nest. And you can see the background is very similar to that Spring Fever one, where I used a lot of shards in kind of a crazy way, only instead of swirling around, it was more just like a background. And I would love blue and green. Those are my favorite colors. And so this, the background was just, it was fun to work on. It goes really, really fast at first, and then it slows down tremendously because you have to custom cut all the pieces to fit in the little nooks that are left. But the first part's really fun when it's fast. But this led me, right before I could finish it, COVID hit. And so I have a video about my response to COVID, but the audio's not working, so I'm going to do my best to just talk through it, okay? I turned the volume down so it will enter. Oh, wait. So the place where I was teaching 4 or 5 classes, they were trying to figure out what to do during COVID. And so they asked the teachers to do studio tours. So I did a little video studio tour for them. And then they asked me to share this. And so I did. Let's see if I can do it. And I'm a mosaicist. I say, I'm a mosaicist. And here's my studio. That was the end of the tour. There's I was working on the nest, empty nest there. So as an artist, COVID-19 has affected me just like it's affected everyone else. All my classes are postponed or canceled. So the income from that is gone. And all the galleries and exhibits are closed or moved to online. Some of my work is trapped in exhibits and I can't even pick it up. So I'm a little bit frustrated. I feel very fortunate that I still have my studio at home that I can go to as a reprieve and use my creative energy and frustrations in that way. But the exhibit piece is just driving me crazy. So one day when I was in the shower, came up with an idea, and it was the driveway gallery. So my studio is in my garage. Let me show you the driveway gallery. First of all, there's the driveway. I'm going to go around and show it to you now. Unfortunately, no one can park in the garage since my studio's been in there. But here it is. Here it is. It takes me about 5 or 10 minutes to set it up every day. I've been putting different works. Today's a big piece, so I just put one. But sometimes I'll put several pieces. It's different every day. I've kind of always wanted to be a gallery owner so that I could control how my work was displayed and how people see it. Here's my audience. Not a whole lot. But when people walk by, they can stop and take a look at it. Sometimes I'll come out and talk to them. So here I am setting it up. I made that sign in like 5 minutes. And I had that sign left over from when I used to do the art walks and stuff. Dust it and put the title out. I just use index cards. So here's one of my neighbors, and she's talking about how much she likes it on her daily walk. She looks forward to seeing what's out there. And she told me that she went to the website because my stuff was out here. So I think before this, my neighbors had no clue what I did for a living. Now I don't know all my neighbors for sure. But I was sitting in my front yard, and then when someone would walk by, I'd jump up and say, "Can I take a picture?" So I could get this video done. So this lady's saying that she really enjoys them too. So this was the first one of the first videos I ever made. I didn't know what I was doing. I used my iPhone, and my daughter had to help me edit it because I didn't know how to do it. And I made this video for the place that I was working, and whoops, I don't know if the video was such a hit, but everybody liked the driveway, the idea of the driveway gallery. And one thing I liked about it was I liked to put my stuff out there in the way that I could control, which really had never really done that before. So I could pick similar colors or similar styles or similar themes or materials or whatever. I had that exposure to my neighbors, which was good because there's always chunks of people. You're like, does anybody even have a clue that I can do this thing? You know, and maybe someone would buy something, who knows? But more importantly, it gave me something to post on social media. So in the past, if I finished a piece, I would post it. Or if it was in an exhibit, I would post it. But having this every day gave me something new to post every day. And so a lot of people saw this, and I actually had some sales, not from my neighbors, but through social media from this. And that sunflower sold, that first sunflower that I made. And I'll show you some of
This was so clever of you.
Yeah, and it let me also, like, I had all these smalls, and I had all of the jewelry, and it gave me a chance to just put stuff out there. Like, this was all pique-assiette done with ceramic pieces. This was all done with more natural clay inclusions. Here were some small tea pieces. These were some mineral works that I've done. This was, gosh, I did some gold and white pieces for Christmas one year. And then also I did a commission. And I made a video when I was doing this commission too. And the client went bonkers when she saw the commission or the video of it. It was huge how much she liked that video. And that was when I was like, oh, maybe this video thing is not so bad. Maybe so I had done the video of tour, and then the driveway gallery one. And then I made the video of making this dog named Spencer. And that sort of kicked off my YouTube channel. So let's see, here's some other ones. Hearts. You know, when I started making mosaics, I thought hearts are so cliche. I am not making hearts. I don't like hearts. Hearts are lame. And then I have made so many hearts, I can't even count the hearts. And I even made the big heart backsplash. So hearts are great. I'm all about hearts. They're fine. It took me a while to get over that though. These use some of the similar colors and more natural colors there. This piece here, Summer's Gold, and the one on the other side were made from photos. They're not glass at all, but one of them sold, so that was good. Here's some more, my mirrors, some florals, more natural. I like the color theme. This one's kind of peacocky. Here's with the 2 polymer clay pieces I had done for my students. So, that whole driveway gallery thing, I'll go back to that. What came of that was when I was done with that, I ran through basically all of the projects that I had in home. I went through every single one. When I had nothing left to exhibit, I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? Well, when I had nothing left to exhibit, the whole George Floyd thing came about, and it was a natural conclusion for me to stop doing the driveway gallery. I didn't have anything else to put in it, and people's interests had gone somewhere else. So that was good timing. And it took me a while before I started making videos for my YouTube channel, but I think I started right a little bit after that. And I also had a good chance to look at all my work and see what a hot mess it was. I didn't have any kind of theme. It felt like I was all over the place. I was using all different materials and all different styles and abstract and realism, and it was a mess. And I had a solo exhibit before, and I just had to throw everything in there because you have to have like 30 pieces to fill the thing. So I threw everything in there. So the gal had asked me to do another solo show, and I think it was 2 years after the other. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try to build a comprehensive body of work, something that makes more sense. And so I already had done a lot of florals, so I will do florals, and we'll do it a floral, we'll make it a floral show. So I started focusing on florals. I had all the photo references you could imagine. So that was wonderful. And I needed sort of a big piece for the show. And by the end of the summer of 2020, classes had started back up in person with masks. And one of my students said, well, I want to make a fountain. And I said, well, making the fountain is a big part of making a fountain mosaic. You can buy a fountain and put a mosaic on it, or he wanted to make the fountain. And I thought, that's a lot of work. I'll help you do it if that's what you want to do. Well, he ended up not being interested, but I had always wanted to make a fountain. So I made this fountain for that floral exhibit. And it's called the Bluebird Fountain because of the bluebirds on it. But I made a video of me making that fountain. And I think I had so much footage of me cutting the pieces out and sticking it together. And I cut out, it was still a 20-minute video in the end, but I cut out so much and speeded up so much of it with time lapse. It looks like it's fast and easy to make a fountain, but it's really not. It takes a long time. All right, then I did another, as soon as I had that exhibit, everything at the exhibit, I kicked off another community mosaic project. And this one was at the new place that I was working that had the advanced students. And I wanted to do a design that was more simple and that everyone could do. I think the hardest part about this one was that it was going to hang outside. And because it was going to hang outside, everything had to be waterproof. And that meant the adhesive that we used, I chose to go with silicone. And silicone can be messy. So if we use clear silicone, but when clear silicone dries, it just does, you can't even see it. But then when you go to grout, suddenly it reappears and you're like, ooh. So it took a lot of cleaning and a lot of, it was just hard to work with, but anyway. This one ran very smoothly. We had a registration. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we limited to, the size of our room dictated how many people we could have in there. And so we capped it out. And we're like, this is how many people we can have. And I said, 2 hours is what I need, so that it's the 30-minute thing was way too fast. People can sign up for 2 hours. They'll know to go to it. And it worked out great. And I'm happy to say that we are doing phase 2. It's going to kick off next month. And this was 3 mandalas that totaled 15 square feet. And phase 2 is 15 mandalas that total 15 square feet. So it's a bunch of smaller ones that we're going to put on the wall around these main 3. And then this is what I've been working on. This is for my passion project. I wanted to do some realistic sunflowers, but still have that stylized bead. I just love using beads and stained glass together in this capacity. And I think I might keep doing sunflowers for a while. I don't have any solo shows coming up. There's no pressure, but I really love how these turned out. And I think I'm gonna try some different ones. And I had done this one's called Glory, and it's on exhibit right now at a local museum. But here's some other sunflowers that I've done recently. So just from posting my work on Glory, I got a commission to do this one, which is Lemon Queen sunflower. And then this was a base I found at Hobby Lobby, and I made this one. It was just called a Velvet Queen. It's red, but I did the middle a little bit differently. Instead of just using beads, I used some glass pebbles. I used, I think this is a moon face or a sun. And then there were some beads here, but this is pieces of small tea put on into some material. And then I've made a series of pendants. And, I have made a lot of pendants over the years, but these are more like micro mosaics. I'm using small tea and filati. And forcing myself to stick with the theme and not go off topic is tough for me. So to just research sunflowers and find out that there's so many different kinds is nice, because I'm like, oh, I can be known as the sunflower lady. I'm fine with that. And I think there's enough variety. So these, using the stained glass in these bigger pieces, using beads, and then using filati and smalti in the smaller pieces, I posted a little thing on social media showing these pendants, and there were, I only made like 7 of them. And I've already sold 4 of them. I'm like, that's never happened before. So I think I'm onto something. So I'm just gonna turn the volume down. This is a demo. Sue had asked me to do a demo of how glass is cut. And since I use stained glass so much, I'm showing you how to cut stained glass. So here we go. Maybe I'll turn it up a little so I can hear it. So stained glass comes in big sheets, typically 12-inch by 12-inch. And you have to have some way of cutting it down. And so I use a scoring tool. And when you score it, you want to both hear and see the score. You want to see the score line and hear the sound of it scoring the glass. So here I am scoring it. It's best if you're completely vertical, so you have a nice sharp edge on there. And you use this tool called running pliers to snap that score. And here on this next piece of glass, it's got some texture to it. So if I score on the textured side, it's going to skip a little bit. So it's better to go on the side that's more smooth if you're going to score it, because it'll skip on the other side. So just score it again. So when I'm teaching my classes, this is what I teach the beginners: to take the glass and cut it down into strips. And I just call it the strip method. And here's another piece I'm scoring. The other side was textured too much to score. And so you have to score on this side. The running pliers have a bit of a curve to them, so they push down on either side of that line and break the glass. That's it for that one. And then the next one, oops. The next one is, now I have the strip. How do I get the shapes I want on the strip? So I use this tool called wheeled nippers. And you place it on and you just give it a squeeze. You can cut whatever shape you want. You can cut a square, you can cut triangles, and you can cut a circle. So here I take a square and I just show that I'm going to cut a circle. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you cut so perfectly? There's no cutting really, it's nipping. And when you're nipping, you're doing a lot of little tiny nips. The glass sort of wants to curve. And so a lot of times people get frustrated because they can't get a straight nip, but that's sort of the nature of glass. You have to respect the materials you're working with and understand them. Working in that glass shop really helped me understand it quite a bit. So then once I get it to this point, it's pretty jiggy jaggy because the nip is making it that way. So then I can take it to my grinder. And I try to not use my grinder, but sometimes I use it. And the reason is because it's a slow, mosaics are a slow art. And if you grind every piece, you're just making it that much slower. So I only grind it when absolutely necessary. So here's my grinder. It's up close and personal. This part here is a bit, and it's metal, like a metal fingernail file. And you could file your nail on that if you wanted to. But the reservoir has to have water, and then the water wicks up this sponge and keeps the bit wet because you don't want glass dust getting in your lungs. Let me turn it down.
Like a metal nail.
So I just take my circular piece and I push it up against that bit, and I can smooth it out. So I worked for probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before I got a grinder. You don't need a grinder. But for making circles, it's handy. So that's it. Now it's nice and smooth. Oops. And then in this video, I show how I apply the beads, and this is a time lapse, so it goes super, super fast. The adhesive that I'm using here is the epoxy sculpt that I talked about earlier, where you mix it and it has the consistency of polymer clay, only it's sticky. It also has a limited work time. It gets hard in 2 hours. And I think your work time is about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So, I put the epoxy sculpt on and I laid these beads in this middle part first because, you have limited times. And then I'm going to do the outside next. And that's what this video is. I've already mixed it up. You have to mix it for 2 minutes. And then in this one, I'm using the natural gray, but I do prefer the black, but this center of this was lighter, so I went with the gray. And then I found that having the beads on strands makes it go super fast. Although I do occasionally put them in individually, like those there. Because you could just lay it in, press it into the epoxy, and then pull the strand out. So see how much faster it is when there's a strand? And then what's wonderful about that is that then the holes in the beads don't show also, because when you use the strand, they go on in. So I think that's all there is in that one. But I end up, that probably took me 30 minutes to lay in those beads. And I had everything set up around me before I mixed that epoxy. I had all the beads ready to go, all the knots out of the strands so that I could lay them really fast and that epoxy wouldn't set up. So then once you get it all in there, I would take my hand and make sure everything is pressed into that epoxy nice and tight. That's it. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, if anybody's got questions, unmute yourself and go for it. Otherwise, I want to say thank you. That was cool. I learned a lot from you today. And you can always access her YouTube videos. Julie has a ton.
Well, the YouTube videos. So when I started making those, I've been doing a lot of gardening, and I modeled it off this gardening channel that I watch, where she just goes, "Today I'm doing this in my garden," and she would show you. And I'm like, I don't want to make specific things where I have to set it up and show people. But what I can do is I can show people what I'm working on today. That seemed easy to me. So that idea came from the gardening channel that I watched, and so that's where I got the idea. But then I was making those videos for probably 3 months, and I had 12 subscribers, which is really bad. And I told my sister, "This is awful. I'm not getting any subscribers. Nobody's even watching these. What's the point? I think I'm done." And she goes, "Just stick with it. You can do it." And I was like, "Oh, this is the worst." And I stuck with it. And the big goal is in YouTube to be monetized so that you make money from the ads. So they run ads and you don't get the money until you're monetized. But to be monetized, you had to have 1,000 subscribers. And so I was like, oh, that's going to be forever. And I actually got to 1,000 subscribers in March of this year. And it's some crazy algorithm. It really speeds up. I already have 2,000 subscribers. So it's up quite a bit. And I don't make a lot, but I paid for the music. So I got to pay off that debt.
Yeah, it helps. So your email, your YouTube and your web page are in our latest newsletter, which everyone should have gotten. And if you didn't, you can also go to our PAA's website, and all our newsletters are there. So I really appreciate seeing your progress and learning what you learned. Now, some of it I knew, some of it I didn't.
Well, I try to, in those videos that I make, I feel like there's something that is missing. There's a lot of people that do how to make a mosaic, but there's not a lot of people that say why you would pick a certain color or why you would use a certain adhesive. And so I kind of answer that question as I'm working. And doesn't focus on adhesives, but it'll be like, I throw it in there. So it is more like tips and tricks, I guess.
It's probably like so many art. It's a doing. You have to do, and you gotta. I mean, you just learn along the way. I mean, you know, I volunteer. I wanted to tell everybody, if anybody's interested in doing mosaics, we have a church in El Dorado Hills where the pastor is a mosaic artist, and she got a grant through the church to have a mosaic workshop. And I've been volunteering down there for, I don't know, well, of course, the 2 years of COVID, but for 4 or 5 years now. And it's everybody's welcome to come. It's $20 a project. You can be there for 2 times to finish your project or a year. It doesn't matter. And I try to get the problems out of the way at first, but everybody's doing their thing. It's a good group. It's fun. We have tons of glass that's been donated, and the fees go to pretty much the glue because our glasses don't. I get glass from the last couple times from stained glass artists that are done doing stained glass.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I've had a lot of 2 studios, like complete studios, and that's where a lot of my tools and things come from. I did want to give a plug to, I had been a member of the Atlanta Artist Center, which is a group, I think more like yours, where there's all different types of art, mostly painting, photography, but there's also sculptors, mosaic artists, different things, collage artists in there. And that, being a member of that group has been invaluable. I volunteered to hang shows, and I just got to know, I had made a lot of friends, and it was really great. And that is where I learned how to do, I took a color theory class through that group, and then it suddenly clicked with me how tones work, and it all made sense to me. Early on, I didn't understand why I was using blue in the shadow, but once I did color theory, it made sense. So
Yeah, I think I believe that all artists, whether they're specific to one medium or another or not, can always learn from other artists. Like most of our group, I think there's only a few of us that do mosaics, and to have a mosaic artist, to me, a painter could learn from I think from some of the things that you said, and I think we can all learn from each other. So to be in a group where there's a variety of artists and mediums is invaluable. That's just me, but yeah. Does anybody have any questions? I don't need to be taking up Julie's time, or if not, then Linnell, I'm gonna let you take it. But Julie, I want to thank you again, and we will be sending you a check in the mail.
Julie, thank you so much for your time today. I was really impressed with the artistry in some of the work that you showed us today.
Yeah.
And gal, you can do hands and feet. Wow, wow, wow. Amazing, just amazing when you see that in mosaic. Don't you guys agree with that?
Oh, yeah,
weren't
to
her
do
hands
it,
and feet
to do it with
just
pieces of glass is amazing.
stunning, stunning, breathtaking, amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that with us today. It was really great to have you here. And I don't know, Sue may be surprised. There may be a couple of other mosaic artists lurking around in the group. Darlene Balsama does some stepping stone work in mosaics that I can think of for one. And then we have a couple of other people that have brought their representation of it today. Carolyn Cunningham's, of course, will be much more artistic than mine. I'll show mine at the end just to let all you guys know that keep trying. Someday you may actually do something worthwhile, but please don't ever be reluctant or embarrassed to show your work, because I show you mine. So we'll do that. So on our list of shares today, I have Sue Wickersham, Terry Meyer, Carolyn Cunningham, Donna Nelson, and Linnell Phillips. Anybody else bring a mosaic to share with us today? Okay, well, very good. All right, so Sue, are you willing to be the first one?
Sure, let me get my share thing going. I put 3 up, but we don't have to see them. I'll just show this one because I wasn't sure if anybody else would share. And I thought, well, I'll fill the time.
Show it all, show it all.
All right. Well, this one is the one I did for the mosaic show. Do you see it? I'm not sure if my internet is
We
still.
can, yes, we
Yeah.
see it. That's,
Okay.
yes, that's the blue and red flower
Yeah,
one. Very pretty.
it's called Zion, and it just reminded me. I was trying to I'm trying to do more abstract in a variety of my wacky art that I do. So I was trying to abstract being in the valley in Zion National Park,
Oh, okay.
and I wanted to do a vase. I've never done a vase before. I don't know if I ever will again. But this was a thrift store. I only do these one-offs, so I get bored and have to move on. But this was a thrift store clear vase that was 10 inches tall, and I think the circumference was, well, the diameter, whatever, you know, the round, 5 inches. And I designed this flat. I had drawn it out flat. And I brought it into Photoshop and threw in colors because I knew the kind of glass I had, and that was my pattern. So I started to cut the glass, like stained glass, flat. And I can't put a big old piece of stained glass on a curved structure. So now what do I do? So then it's like, okay, well, now I figured out that my maximum width I could put of a flat piece on this particular vase. And that's where I had to start cutting everything in strips. So that's where the strips came in. And then I thought, okay, I don't want the blue, which is representative of the sky to me, to be the same as the rocks. And how am I going to do that? And by this time I was done cutting stained glass. I couldn't, it had gone out of its own shape, and there's no way I could even try from my flat design. So I said, I'm just going to start cutting with my nippers and just throwing it in there. And like Julie said, it's fun at first, and then it's not so fun because everything's got to get cut for that. It took me probably 3 days, spending I don't know how many hours just doing the blue. I did the, obviously, because there's bigger pieces, the orange faster. And then those little round pieces are just pieces of, I won't know the right name, Julie. You might, they're the.
Rods, I think. Just glass.
Yeah, the rods. Yeah, I had some, I just nipped them. So that's I won honorable mention in the mosaic show.
Nice.
So that was fun. So that's that. Why don't we share the other?
Okay,
Everybody else.
let's let Terry go next.
I don't know how to do this. Do I put share screen or what do I do? Or can I
Right.
just show it?
You can do that too. It's good
Yeah.
if you hold it kind of in front of your face, because then we can see it. Lift it up just a little bit more. There we go. There's somebody doing mosaic work. I love that. That's good.
This is it's just on a piece of slate, and I used to do stained glass, so I got into doing mosaic with the stained glass, that I have. And it's a lot of fun, but I enjoyed getting the tools because I have a grinder and I have pliers, but I want to get that other nipper that you have. Definitely would help.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, yeah. So
Terry, where are you located?
I live in Camino. Yeah, I'd be interested in
Okay.
coming down to the church. You didn't say the name, but I'll contact you later through email or something.
Yeah, it's St. Stephen's Church in El Dorado Hills, and we do have a schedule. So if you contact me and I will send you the information.
That sounds really fun. I
Yeah.
have some other pieces I've done too. They were just, they're simple, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And I don't do stained glass anymore, so
I've met a lot of stained glass artists that have gone to mosaics.
yeah.
I
It's a lot
actually met
easier.
Yeah, I met somebody in Grass Valley that they did that too at the mosaic show.
Yeah.
So yeah, get in touch. That'd be great.
Okay.
All right, well, we're gonna do a share screen over here at my end, and the next one coming up is Carolyn Cunningham's piece. Do you all see a vase of flowers here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Wow.
very good. Carolyn's on.
No, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately, I missed the first part of your presentation. So I don't know if this is truly considered a mosaic. It's just paper. But I always kind of call it a collage because I don't leave, or I didn't leave spaces in between the pieces like what I think a true mosaic probably does. But yeah, it's just a bunch of pieces of paper cut into squares and maybe some
Looks like fun.
triangles and glued down. That was it. About 9
I
by
like it.
12 is all. Cool.
We're taking a broad interpretation of mosaics in this
Mosaics.
challenge, and this certainly fits within the broad interpretation. You're coloring much more within the lines than I am. So when we get to mine, we'll just see.
And
Okay.
this could have been entered into the mosaic show because it was a mosaic show that was modern mosaics, wasn't all glass. So this would have been accepted.
Okay, well, I'll
Just so you
remember
know.
that.
Yeah. All right, and so next up is going to be Donna Nelson. She's given us 3 pieces that I have on my computer for her. Donna, would you like to speak?
Okay. This one is called Hillside Farm, and it is both glass and beads, primarily beads. The mountains, I did cut little slivers of glass, but I have a huge inventory of beads from when I used to do beadwork on gourds. So I found bead mosaic a good way to use some of these beads. I had a friend do the sun for me. She melted some glass, and I really do enjoy working with beads. It really puts me in another zone.
Beautiful, Donna.
Yeah, this piece, it was also entered into the mosaic show. And seeing it here is beautiful, but you have to see it in person.
Thank you. This one is called Prayers for Ukraine. It measures only 6 by 6. It's, again, beads on board. And I did this one for the Mill Station Arts and Culture Center fundraiser. They were fundraising for children's art supplies in schools. They had over 300 entries. It was just this year. So I did one. I like doing smaller ones because they're faster and I can finish one in a decent amount of time. And this one sold. Sue was also part of this silent auction to raise funds.
I was, and our friend Linnell bought one. Thank you, Linnell.
Oh, that's right. She did. She got the brown one. This is the first one I did, and this is primarily glass. I love sunflowers. And this was a trial by error. I use primarily shards on this one. The center of the sunflower are very, very small round glass pieces. I incorporated orange, yellows, as you can see, some blues. The petals, again, are all shards, and I was able to find some little squares. I didn't realize when I started that I was going to run out of black squares. So you make use of what you have, and get on eBay and order some white. And of course, they didn't come in the right size, so you do what you have to do. But anyway, this was my first one. It was a lot of fun, and I've entered it in several shows.
And I want to also tell everybody that when you talk about shards, Donna's talking about, we stay at the workshop, we have sheets of glass and then pieces of glass. And so I don't think Donna did many cuts, if any. Did you, Donna, in this? It was all pieces of glass from other people cutting and using.
Right. This was all junk.
It was all the stuff that leftover stuff.
Right.
So some people are afraid to cut and even afraid to nip. And it's like, just go to the shards and go for it. Look what Donna did, you know, so.
Wow.
It was fun. Thanks. That's it.
This piece is always interesting to me because if I don't think about what I'm looking at, it has a certain softness and quilt-like texture to it. And so I kind of find that juxtaposition of the glass and that soft feeling that I get from it to be very, very interesting.
Nice. Thank you, Linnell.
Just my observation. Okay, on to mine. So this is how other artists inspire you. Karen Poole posted a copy of a bat-eared fox photo up on Facebook one day, and she said, I'm going to draw this. And so kind of as a joke, I drew my version of it and posted it up on her Facebook page. And then I decided, well, I might as well go one step further and be influenced by another artist. And so last year, Kellen Dyer in the Motherlode show had this big rooster that he done that he cut out from the background and then pasted it on another paper and then pasted bits of it around. And so I decided I would do the same thing for our mosaic challenge today. And so now I've taken my flat painting that originally started out looking a lot like this, and I've pulled it away from the paper just a little bit and made it a little bit crazier, but I actually like the mosaic
Oh,
version
that's
better.
awesome.
I like how you experiment, Linnell, and that you try things and come up with new ideas.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I even like the angle of the fox slightly better on the glue in. Not that it was intentional, but it's kind of just the way it turned out. And so it was fun to do that. So nice.
And he's
to share with
cute.
you.
He's cute.
Oh,
I know
like him.
Maggie's rolling her eyes. She's like, oh my God. I once said a member show with Maggie, and I'm like, your work is brilliant. And she's like, can't everyone do that? No, Maggie, everyone cannot do that. All right, Sue, do you have a couple more you want to share with us?
I don't know if I've lost them now. Let me see, hang on. Let me, I'll show the one that you own.
Good, do that, because otherwise I have to hold it in front of my head, and that's not
All
going to
right.
be as convenient.
So we had an auction at the, like Donna said, that the MAC, and this was a piece that I entered 2 pieces or donated 2 pieces, and this is the one that Linnell purchased. It's called, didn't I call it River Run or something?
Yes.
So I didn't make it this way. I made it. I think I've turned it 180. Anyway,
I have it positioned with the point up. I have it 90 degrees this way on the way I have it displayed right now.
I think that's the way they displayed it at the gallery. And I didn't like this. I thought, oh, this is not turning out. I'm going to junk it. And then I thought, you know, I'm donating this. Somebody in all of those people that are going to look at that art, somebody might like it. It's for charity. So what the heck? If it doesn't get purchased, it'll just come back next year. So I just kept on going. And one thing I did new for me was the blue is, I cut stained glass in strips, and then I cut them in small pieces. And I was afraid of the sharpness, because if people are handling it or touching it, I have a grinder like you, Julie, and I ground down all what is now the tops of that. The pastor of the church, who's a mosaic artist, she does a lot of this, turning glass on its side and building up glass and more. She'll have like 4 layers of glass. So I've never tried it before. And the other thing I did new was this grout looks kind of funky, like dusty. It's pre-mixed grout, which has its pros and cons. So that was new for me. I like it now when I flipped it. But Linnell won the auction. So that's,
I love it. I love it. It's on my desk right in front of me. And I have a glass duck next to it and one of Leonard's waterfowl. And then on the other side, I have a little wooden sailboat and my mineral cave. So I get into a whole fantasy land around it.
good. I'm
Just
glad
to
you got
share
it.
my life with you guys, what's my desk.
I can show the other one if you want, or do you want to move on to announcements?
Oh, go ahead. I'm going to cut announcements kind of short today because it's mostly in the newsletter anyway, but feel free to show your last one.
All right. This wasn't also an experiment. I've never done it since, only did it once. I have a ton of tiles and granite. This is slate, I guess. I just picked up the slate tile and dropped it on the floor or on the ground. And then I had the blue tile actually came from the church. Somebody had donated all this pretty blue tile that they must have used for some kind of project. And I like rusty things. So this is called Convergence. And I was just messing with stuff. I had never used thin set before and then put this stuff on top of the thin set. It didn't come out the way my mind wanted it to come out, so I probably still have to do something again, but I did this it was a lot of what I do is just experiments. Whether I go back to them or not, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't done anything like this. This sold down at the City Hall show when another artist bought it. So that was nice. Yeah, so that's all.
Well,
that's it.
thank you for sharing all that, Sue. It was also interesting to hear about your Friday workshops at the Episcopal Church. That's really, really interesting. And
open to anybody. Come on down. It's noon to 3 every other Friday, kind of. But I have a schedule. We have a schedule for the next 3 months. So just let me know.
Okay, so the important announcement that I have for you guys is that anyone who receives our newsletter is going to get a member survey. You can fill it out even if you're not a member, but everybody here I'm speaking to right now, except Julie is a member, but Julie, you can fill it out too. We're likely to give more weight to what the members respond to this survey than the non-members respond to this survey, but there's a quirk within our mail out system, and it's going to make us delete our entire mailing list to call out the members. And so we're just going to send it to everybody. So respond to it. And it's about these member meetings and our member shows. We want to know what's important to you. We have everything pretty much set up for the rest of the year, but before we launch into setting up what we're going to do or plan for next year, we want to know what the members want us to do on both these member meetings and member shows. And then the other important announcement I have is that Call to Artists is open for the 56th National Motherlode Art Exhibition. Details can be received. You can read the entire prospectus on our website. Please enter. We've earmarked a full $3,000 this year for prize money. And it is going to truly be, I believe, prize money or a gift certificate for art supplies that might be a small part of the prize pool. But no, we're not going to give away actual artist supplies this year. That pastel paper to the watercolor artists, that doesn't help them out very much unless they want to expand their art. So bigger prize pool this year. We're not going to ask the artists who are in the show to bring refreshments. We are going to have a evening reception. I've heard that there's going to be chamber music or something. The judge will give a presentation that evening. There is a bar at the MAC, and so there will be some wine available that evening. It should be really lovely, and you don't have to be in the show to come to the reception. So keep in mind, even if you're not accepted in the show, that reception is going to be happening in conjunction with the Motherlode. But enter now, because our promoters here, Sue and Donna, who are the co-chairs of this committee, are getting a little nervous. So let's get those entries in, and keep in mind that if you're a Placerville Arts Association member, that you are in line for additional awards in the show. So there's an extra grouping of prizes that you can qualify for if you're a member. We give awards to Placerville Arts Association only. Kellen Dyer won the first place award for Placerville Arts Association for the rooster previously mentioned in my presentation last year. The other thing, and Carolyn has dropped off, but I like to mention that membership is important to us. If you have any friends that, and I know that everybody currently on the screen is a member, but if you have anybody that is an artist that isn't a member of our group, encourage them to join, because we've got one more member show this year in October that will be at the Government Center. And you need to be a member to get into the October 10th show. Judge on that show is Oran Miller. And the other benefit of membership is we print a membership roster at the end of every year. So even if you join during this time of the year, you'll be included in that membership roster for the end of the year. Next month at our August meeting, our presenter will be Maggie Kasner. She's here today on screen, and she will be talking, I think, about her area of expertise, and that is she is a master at pet portraiture. She rolls her eyes, but you are. Your work is just fabulous. She also won for a tiger at our last member show, and I said, oh my God, that tiger, that's amazing and a little different what you do. And she said, oh yeah, like I whipped that up one afternoon when I had a little spare time.
I just sold it
Oh, good
on
for you.
Facebook.
Congratulations.
On Facebook to somebody in Oregon.
Congratulations. And she sells a lot of her art. A lot of it is commissioned, and she sells a lot of it. And then Matt Harlan, who is also here with us today, is going to talk about From the Ashes of Disaster, Grow the Roses of Success. Matt experienced a studio fire in Butte County, and he's going to talk about how pieces of that fire enhance his current work. And Matt is going to be on our studio tour this year. So if you haven't ever had a chance to go up and see his studio, it's a really awesome experience up there where he is. And that segues into, for our September meeting, we're going to go live to art tours. So we're hoping that most of our studios on art tours will bring up a cell phone connection and show us what's going on at their studio that day on a Zoom meeting. And the great part is our member meeting is the first weekend of art tours. So if you see a studio out there that really gets your interest, then you'll have the opportunity to go out the next weekend and see them in person. Okay, that's it for me. Anybody else got anything they need to say today?
Did anybody see the big ad for the Motherlode show in the Mountain Democrat?
Yes, I did.
Yay, thank you. Good.
Thank you, Donna Nelson. We got a wonderful donation of advertising space for the Motherlode show from the Mountain Democrat. And so Donna has scheduled advertising for our call to artists up till the closing date. And then I think she's going to shift the advertising to talk about the actual show itself after our call to artists closes. So enter the Motherlode show. We would really appreciate your entries, and I hope
I'm working on 3 pieces right now, so.
Oh, yay.
Oh, good.
You go,
They're
girl.
not done yet. They're not done, so, but I'll get them before the deadline.
Very good, Sherry Lynn Morrison. You usually get 1 or 2 in every year too. So we will hopefully see you at the show, and I look forward to seeing Stephen at reception night. I don't get to see him often enough nowadays. Okay, they're very good. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been a good meeting. Thank you, Julie, for your presentation. It was really, really nice to see your artwork. You
Your
really
work
take
is
mosaics.
awesome.
Yeah, you take
I love
mosaics
it.
to the next level. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for sharing your mosaics with us. We'll see you all next month.
Thank you,
Bye.
Julie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Bye.